So, very warm welcome, everyone, and we are very, very glad that we can restart with these sessions. So, uh, the last that we stopped was at this colored part, page number 71. We stopped. We were book 1, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. So, today we'll again, as we always do, we'll always usually have an overlap. We'll read through these lines, which we have done earlier, and then we will start with the new passages which are still uncolored. So, if I can request whoever has the capacity, we'll start reading one by one. We'll just read through. So, one person can read the green colored, and then the next paragraph, and then the next. So, anyone who has the capacity to read, we'll start from page number 69 towards the end. This is the sailor on the flow of time. And as we are reading, we'll also be reflecting parallelly. We'll not be taking up the reflections in detail, but we'll just inwardly, individually be reflecting, right, in our own, and then we'll take up the new lines. So, anyone who would like to
Yeah.
start?
Can I start?
Please, yes, please.
Yeah. This is the sailor on the flow of time. This is world matter's slow discoverer, who, launched into this small corporeal birth, has learnt his craft in tiny bays of self, but dares at last unplumbed infinitudes, a voyager upon eternity's seas.
Yeah, anyone who wants to go next?
Okay, I will go
Yes,
through it.
please. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So in his world adventure's crude initial start, behold him ignorant of his godhead's force, timid initiate of its vast design, an expert captain of a fragile craft, a trafficker in small, impermanent wares. At first he hugs the sore and sons the breadths, dares not to affront the far off perilous men.
Yeah, thank you, Pradeep ji. Yeah, please, anyone who has the capacity, unmute and read out.
He in a petty coastal traffic plies, his pay doled out from port to neighbor port, content with his safe round's unchanging course, he hazards not the new and the unseen, but now he hears the sound of larger seas.
Yeah, Monica, I'll read.
Yes, please, and you can continue even after the yellow part. You can take up the full paragraph. Yeah, please.
A widening world calls him to distant scenes, and journeyings in a larger visions are, and peoples unknown and still unvisited shores. On a commissioned kneel his merchant hull, serves the world's commerce in the riches of time. Severing the foam of a great landlocked sea to reach unknown harbor lies in distant climes, and open markets for life's opulent arts, rich bales, carved statues, hued canvases, and jeweled toys brought for an infant's play, and perishable products of hard toil, and transient splendors won and lost by the days.
Thank you, Sardaji. So, anyone who wants to go next?
I'll read.
Yeah, please.
Or passing through a gate of pillar rocks, venturing not yet to cross oceans unnamed, and journey into a dream of distances, he travels close to unfamiliar coasts and finds new heaven in storm troubled isles, or guided by a sure compass in his thought, he plunges through a bright haze that hides the stars, steering on the trade routes of ignorance.
Thank you. So, Priyanka, maybe you can finish it up. Or Sham, would you like to read uh, after Priyanka is done?
Right, actually.
Sorry? Okay, you're outside. Okay. So, Priyanka,
Yeah.
if you could just
Okay.
maybe cover it up. Yeah.
Okay. His prow pushes towards undiscovered shores. He chances on unimagined continents. A seeker of the island of the blessed, he leaves the last lands, crosses the ultimate seas. He turns to the eternal things, his symbol quest. Life changes for him, its time constructed scenes, its images veiling infinity.
Earth's borders recede and the terrestrial air hangs around him no longer its translucent veil. He has crossed the limit of mortal thought and hope. He has reached the world's end and stares beyond. The eyes of mortal body plunge their gaze into eyes that look upon eternity, a greater world time's traveler must explore.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. So this, what we read was Sri Aurobindo describing our journey as a human being, a soul uh, trapped, if one can say, in a boat made of matter, which is our body, and journeying through the depths and heights of consciousness, and along with that, journeying through the planet Earth and beyond. So, parallelly, we see many, many images coming up here that how first we were exploring as human collective, we were exploring the Earth, now we are done exploring the boundaries of the Earth. So, we feel confident that, okay, now we can reach out to other planets. And just like that, inwardly, if we take this metaphor, the more first we play very kind of in the beginning he shares uh, the sailor uh, into his small corporeal birth has learned his craft in tiny base of self. So in the beginning, as we see that the soul is learning to adapt to how to function a body. For example, we see little children trying to walk. So it's a fully grown soul, the soul is there inside, but it's trying the new craft of being in a body and maneuvering the body. So that's what we see in little children, how they learn to stand up, they learn to maybe keep their head upright, then they learn to put their fingers in the mouth. First of all, in the beginning, they are searching for their mouth, they are not very sure. So it's like learning the craft of this matter. So the soul consciousness in each one of us is learning the craft of matter. So that's how he starts in the beginning. And slowly, slowly, as he grows confident of this craft, then he begins to explore first the closer areas, and then he goes beyond and beyond and beyond, as he describes in this. And that beyond is a never ending beyond, because once we have, for example, outwardly covered earth as exploration, then we are not satisfied with that. So we want to go ahead. We want to see what is there on the moon. We want to see what is there even on the sun. They have sent a satellite, a probe, which is circling around the sun billions of years away from here, light years away. So that's the human curiosity. It's never ending. It's not possible to satiate it. And inwardly also, if we see that as we have grown as an individual through at least this life's journey, we always, those of us who are really curious and want to explore more their own heights and depths, there's no end to it. We may have really reached good heights according to our previous ages or lifetimes, but even right now, wherever we are, there is no end to that exploration. So the more confident we grow slowly, the more we want to explore. So he shares in different kind of words, a widening world calls him to distant scenes, never satisfied with what is there, what we have already explored, and journeyings in a larger vision's arc and people's unknown and still unvisited shores. So if I have settled down somewhere, after a few years of settling down, something gets a bit, restless inside, and we want to explore further. So people travel for that reason. They want to know more, they want to explore. And parallelly, inwardly also, even if we are not maybe traveling outwardly, inwardly we want to travel. And that is why it brings us so much of joy. Mother says progress brings us joy. So whether it's outward progress towards perfection, or whether it's inward progress in the depths and heights of our consciousness, that progress brings us a lot of joy. Otherwise we feel very stagnated. So first we deal with the very temporary wares. This, I'm just giving you an overlap of the part that we have already covered. So we, whatever people are saying, okay, get married, have children, we are just dealing with that. Have a job which pays you well. But then after some time, when we have done all that, we realize that no, this is not enough. There's something which is still missing. So then we go ahead, whatever that calls us beyond. And then here he shares that first we deal with the perishable products of hard toil, in which we have to put a lot of effort, 9 to 5 job, working really hard to buy a car or buy a house. And then later on, as we have enough of that, then we plunge ourselves into something beyond. So he says in the second last stanza that we covered, his prow pushes towards undiscovered shores. He chances on unimagined continents, a seeker of the islands of the blessed. It's a kind of an imagery towards something more beautiful, something more perfect, something more harmonious. We are always looking for that in our ignorance also. He leaves the last lands, crosses the ultimate seas. He turns to the eternal things. So earlier we were dealing in perishable wares, making transactions in the worldly matters. But now when we have done that enough, then we turn to eternal things. Things which are something of the beyond, something which would never die, something which is eternal. He turns to eternal things, his symbol quest. Life changes for him its time constructed scenes. And when we begin to look beyond the appearances, beyond the material, then something changes, something shifts. And even the appearances that we face in the day-to-day life, they always give us a different meaning than just the appearance. So there is always more to the scene than just the facade of the scene. Life changes for him its time constructed scenes, its images veiling infinity. So he's able to now see something beyond that. Everything has a purpose. No matter wherever, in whatever phase of life I am right now, there must be a purpose, a higher purpose towards which this is leading me. Nothing happens by chance. Or even if it happens by chance, it's a part of the grand design. And then we can also correlate it with how we go in higher altitudes. For example, the air thins, there is lesser oxygen, and it's like a purer, rarer, as we say, rare air, a purer air, lesser oxygen, high altitudes. So along with that purity, there is also clarity, but there is also chances of you getting fainted there. For example, that it requires a lot of effort to travel to higher altitudes. So Earth's borders recede, and the terrestrial air, the air with which we were familiar with, the day-to-day life, or the comfort zones that we were familiar with, they now fade away. We have to, at one point of time in our lifetime, we have to let them go. We can't always be in our comfort zones and then still want to progress. That's not possible. We'll have to go through discomfort of the thinning air. So this terrestrial air hangs around him no longer its translucent veil. So the more we are in our comfort zones, areas and people and persons and places which are very familiar, the lesser progress somehow we are able to do. And the more we are in uncomfortable zones, the more progress, the more expansion we are able to do. So also, as if it is a translucent veil in front of us, this terrestrial air, the familiar air, which is not allowing the clarity in the vision to grow. He has now crossed the limit of mortal thought and hope. He has reached the world's end and stares beyond. So he's not satisfied with whatever growth that is there, which is a beautiful thing in itself, because it keeps us self motivated. This propulsion that comes from inside, that yes, I may be a very great musician or an artist, or something which has great fame and name. And yet, if you meet people who are very great artists or musicians, they will always say that no, but this is not enough. I still want to learn more, grow more. So he has reached the world's end and yet stares beyond. The eyes of mortal body plunge their gaze into eyes that look upon eternity. A greater world, time's traveler, must explore. So this soul consciousness, which is the traveler in time, which is seated in our body consciousness also, that's what it's exploring. So imagine that there is a little drop of light, or maybe a larger drop of light, trapped in kind of a dark matter, and it is exploring the darkness of the inconscient and the material field through that little light, which is very powerful, no matter how little it may seem. That's the time's traveler, referring to the soul consciousness. So this was where we paused the last time. I would invite, if there are any lines that you resonated with or anything that came forward, any insights so far. Anyone who wants to share before we begin the new ones? Okay, so please feel free to unmute at any given time if you want to share anything. We'll continue, and if there are any mistakes, please forgive me for that. There would be many, but we'll just still go ahead. So yeah, anyone who would like to read the one in green.
At last he hears a chanting on the heights, and the far speaks, and the unknown grows near. He crosses the boundaries of the unseen and passes over the edge of mortal sight to a new vision of himself and things.
Yeah, thank you. So, somehow I also relate this with how, as human beings, as scientists, we have crossed the horizon of Earth, and we have traveled so far. We have traveled until Pluto, and till Pluto, we have been able to send satellites which have been able to probe the surface and all that, which at one point of time would be completely impossible, unimaginable that we can go to Pluto. So even to sun, like so much of heat, so much of fire there, and yet there is something which is very close to circling around the sun and sending pictures of the solar flares and everything. So as we grow far from our comfort zones, for example, as a human being, Earth is my comfort zone, so I'm now confident enough that I'm going outside into the space and traveling there. So as we grow confident in our grounding in ourselves, we are ready to explore the heights, breadths, and depths of our consciousness. And that's what, for example, yogis do in caves and forests, exploring the depths and the mysticism of the consciousness. Because something calls us. We are here today reading Savitri. Something, we may not be able to understand what really Sri Aurobindo may want to tell us here, but we still are trying, we are attempting, because there is a call, that there is something which is calling me from beyond. So at last, as the human evolution grows forward, as we grow in our journey of human consciousness, uh, because we are not satisfied with wherever we are, which is a beautiful thing in itself, because that is what propels us forward towards growth of consciousness. At last, he hears a chanting on the heights. So the heights of our consciousness are calling us. And the far speaks and the unknown grows near. So that which was very far a few years ago, a few moments ago, now it calls me. I remember how Savitri came to my life is that a few years ago, Savitri, something was calling, something was calling me to Savitri, but I had no clue what it is and appeared Greek and Latin when I tried to attempt it. But and there was no frustration about it, but there was a call, and yet there was like as if I don't understand the language, how can I attempt it? But then the more we persist, and we can't do anything but persist because that's our destiny, the more it comes closer. And the more we go closer, we see that, oh my God, there is no end to this growth of consciousness. So there is more and more and more, as Sri Aurobindo says, one realization, and then after a greater realization, then a greater realization awaits us. So the far begins to speak to us, and the unknown, which was so far unknown, it grows near to us. He crosses the boundaries of the unseen. That which was so far was unseen, now he is able to go closer and even cross the boundaries of unseen, and passes over the edge of mortal sight to a new vision of himself and things. Now mortal sight is something which is palpable through senses, and we know that our senses, eye, touch, sense of smell, everything, hearing, everything has a limit. But we want to grow through that limit. We don't want that only I should be limited. We always want to know more. We want to believe in something which may now not be palpable by my senses. There are some people who are able to see auras. There are some people who are able to see vital beings after people cross over. So although we may not be able to see it, but we know that yes, there is a possibility. Where is this knowing coming from when it is still beyond my senses? So something opens me up to a new vision of myself and things. So I know myself as something more than my mortal senses. So anything here? Anyone? Let's take a pause. Anything here? Okay. Going forward then. Yeah, anyone who wants to read next?
Okay, I'll read.
Yeah, please go ahead.
He is a spirit in an unfinished world that knows him not and cannot know itself. The surface symbol of his goalless quest takes deeper meanings to his inner view. His is a search of darkness for the light, of the mortal life for immortality.
Yeah. Thank you. So this, we'll always, whenever we read this, those of us who know this, I'm sure we all have studied it, and in our schools also, the mantra, Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. So he, referring to the soul consciousness, he is a spirit in an unfinished world. a world of matter which is always, always, always striving towards more and more beauty, more perfection, more harmony in the matter itself. And yet it's always unfinished. It's still, as Sri Aurobindo also puts in Savitri, it's like as if earth is laboring since centuries for a new birth of consciousness. So that pain is there, when the labor pain is there, you're just laboring. Imagine the condition of a woman who is just laboring for centuries for a new birth. So he is a spirit in an unfinished world that knows him not. So that unfinished world, still imperfect world, it knows him not. It doesn't know the qualities of spirit, the potential, the power of and might of that spirit, the soul consciousness, and cannot know itself. And that world of matter at the moment, which is unfinished, it's not even capable of knowing itself, neither is it capable of knowing the potential that is there in the spirit, the divine presence in all of us. So the world will always be underestimating. We can always look at it in this sense that usually we are always looking for people's approval. Maybe people approve of me, they give me some respect, some dignity, but we always fail there. And we will always continue to fail there because we can't expect that from this unfinished world. So that's why we have to be our bestest, closest companion. So he is a spirit in an unfinished world that knows him not and cannot know itself. So matter also doesn't know that the origin of matter is the consciousness itself. It appears very dark, full of inertia, difficult to move, again and again gets down in these grooves of habits which are difficult to move. So matter itself is ignorant, the matter itself is ignorant of its own origin, which is the divine origin. So that knows him not and cannot know itself, the surface symbol of his goalless quest takes deeper meanings to his inner view. Now, as we grow in consciousness as a human being, everything takes a deeper meaning. Little day-to-day happenings of life, now they take a deeper meaning, which was so far very mechanical and mundane for me. Somehow there is a belief, there is a faith that something higher is guiding me. We are not abandoned and lost in a material universe. Something is guiding from within and without. The surface symbol of his goalless quest. Earlier we feel like a aimless wanderer half part of our life, but as we grow in our consciousness, we feel led. We feel that yes, it's not that I'm just wandering like a aimless wanderer. I know that I'm being led to my purpose in this life. The surface symbol of his goalless quest takes deeper meanings to his inner view. His is a search for darkness for the light, of mortal life for immortality. So this is what we are striving towards. But in our ignorance, we buy more life insurances. In our ignorance, it's like a distorted vision that we have. So when we are buying more life insurances, when we are going to hospitals which can care for us a lot more than other hospitals which can't, what are we really aiming for? We are actually aiming towards immortality. We want to escape death. We don't want to die. But where is this intention coming from that I don't want to die? That intention is the purest intention, that we at some point, at some part of us knows that we are immortals. Not only in spirit, but we also have the capacity to be immortals in the body. And there are people who maybe still be unknown by most of the world. There are people who have become immortals in their body, which we may not be aware of. So it doesn't matter whether we are aware of not, but things are happening. So that's our search, through our mind, through our limited perceptions. What are we looking for? We are looking for clarity. We are looking for wisdom. We are looking for intelligence. But in our distorted vision, we do actions which are very limited. They have a very limited light. Thought is a very limited life, and Sri Aurobindo calls mind a half-lit ignorance. Like it's light is there, but it's half-lit. It's not fully lit. It's a reflected light. But yet, so far as we remain ignorant, that's the light which is kind of we have to trust upon, unless we reach a greater light, so that we can leave the light of the thought behind and go into the overmind and the light of the supermind. So his is a search for of darkness, darkness of ignorance, darkness of our habits, darkness of our egoistic consciousness, for the light. And no matter how ignorant I may be, my actions are always a distorted image of my true inner seeking, which is towards light, of mortal life for immortality. As we in Buddhism, they also say that each one of us has Buddha nature, and no matter how far we may go into our sins, uh, it doesn't matter. We can always take a U-turn when we are willing, because there is free will. So uh, divine has to wait for the free will to be executed. Whenever I want, whenever I feel now it's enough and I'm ready to take a U-turn back home towards my divine source, it's always kept safe. In Savitri, we had earlier uh, read lines where Sri Aurobindo says that it's this treasure, this divine presence in us, the inner Godhead, is always kept safe for us. It's never tarnished, no matter how far we go into our sins and egoism. Just like a diamond, if it goes in the drain, or garbage, it still remains the diamond, and it has the complete worth which it had before it was kept in the garbage. Because when it's cleaned of the garbage, the value is still the same. And even if the diamond is crushed to pieces, the pieces have the same value. So that's the treasure that is lying hidden in us, so that we reclaim it, this kingdom of divine presence within us, whenever we feel ready. So anything anyone wants to share? Yes,
This
sir.
second last line, his is a search of darkness for the light. I mean, very interesting words, like of search of darkness. It's not saying search of light, right? So as in we have to search in the darkness for the light. I mean, just wanted to reflect on it a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
another name
yeah.
for darkness can be our ignorance, that I don't know who I am. So I'm grappling that how do I know who I am? I'm grappling in my ignorance, I'm grappling with it. But there is something in me which wants to know, and that propels me further towards greater clarity. So again, just one way of looking at it, that in darkness of ignorance, in this blinding egoistic consciousness, where I know myself as this limited body, limited self, identify myself with the thoughts and feelings and emotions, still I want greater clarity, greater wisdom, no matter how distorted my attempts may be.
And it also, has, if you see, there's a visual that as if I am darkness looking for the light, right?
Hmm, hmm.
Search of darkness. The
Of
darkness is
darkness.
searching
Yeah,
for the light.
yeah.
Yeah.
और इसमें मतलब
Yeah.
we can
Thanks.
also
Yeah.
connect the egoistic states here. Like there are three egoistic
Mm.
states: tamas, rajasic, and sattvic. So
Mm.
even at the sattvic stage of egoistic consciousness, it's the ego which is looking for the light. So
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
refer to ego as the darkness or the ignorance,
Yeah.
it still wants to get dissolved towards greater and greater light.
How amazing is that, right? Like
Mhm.
darkness looking for the light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really beautiful. Thank you for bringing it forward. Yes, Raviji, would you like to read?
Yeah, the same line. His is a search of darkness for the light, of mortal life for immortality. As a standalone, if I had got the sentence, I would have corrected it. His is a search in darkness for the light. But as I told you a couple of months ago, we dare not correct Aurobindo. When he says of darkness, he means there's so much of meaning in it.
Absolutely.
The first time I read it, I knew that, this was a potent stanza. Yeah, amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, Sardaji, you wanted to read earlier. Would you like to read now?
Yeah, I'll read.
Okay.
In the vessel of an earthly embodiment over the narrow rails of limiting sense, he looks out on the magic waves of time, where mind like a moon illumines the world's dark. There is a light ever retreating from the eyes, as if in a tenuous misty dream light drawn, the outline of a dim, mysterious shore. So, Monica, if you don't mind, I'll read it again.
Yes, please. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah. In the vessel of an earthly embodiment, over the narrow rails of limiting sense, he looks out on the magic waves of time, where mind like a moon illumines the world's dark. There is limned with limned ever retreating from the eyes, as if in a tenuous misty dream light drawn, the outline of a dim mysterious shore. Beautiful. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. So this is very beautiful, and Saint Kabir has also, in many couplets and songs, he has referred to the body as like a fragile embodiment in which lies something very precious. In some one of the songs he says, "Thari kaya nagar ka kaun dhani." It's like kaya nagar. He refers to the body as a palace, or as a nagar is it's like a city. And he says that who is the owner of your body, because it's getting looted, and that's because the mind, who should be the owner of the body, is always lost in the forest of thought. So he asks us to come back, bring back the mind to the body, being mindful, being aware of what is entering through the doors of the senses. And that's how we reclaim back our throne. When the mind comes back home, either with the thread of the breath or sensations in the body, when the mind is brought home, then the owner is there, the king is there, seated within the city. So he asks us in many, many couplets, he asks us to be present. Otherwise, what happens is that we are looted. For example, somebody said something, and we are having judgments and opinions about why he said something, and he also said something 5 years ago, and that hurt me. So we immediately get lost in the forest of thought. And when the mind is lost in the forest of thought, it's disconnected from the body. So the body is missing the king, the body is abandoned. And that's where diseases also begin to kind of come in as an indicator that please come back home, wanting the mind to be back home. So in this vessel, the body of an earthly embodiment, body is made of earth matter, the 5 6 elements, over the narrow rails of limiting sense. So rails is like a border. You have, like for example, if you're standing on a ship, there are rails, the border of the ship, and our senses are very limiting in nature. So if a person is saying something, the senses are intaking it, and the mind is also a sixth sense. The mind is also interpreting. Now, what we do is we totally buy into our interpretations, and that's our biggest mistake. And this mistake we carry for a lifetime, many a times, and we die many a times with all the stories in the head, believing and buying in the stories, why this happened, this is why it happened, because what I think is right. And we don't realize how foolish we are to buy into these interpretations. So it's very limiting. We can't know ever the larger picture. So one thing which can happen as a blessing, as grace in our this lifetime before we die, is that we stop believing in the interpretations and the stories of the head. That's a very good grace happening if we are less and less sure of our stories in the head. That yes, I met this fellow, and I do have judgments and opinions about this fellow, but I am not sure whether these are true. So this is something very auspicious, because knowing that the senses are limited, knowing that the interpretations are very shallow and limited, and each one of us has different interpretations of the same thing. For example, I may visit Greece, you may also visit Greece, but if I ask you and somebody asks me, we'll have different uh, stories to tell about Greece, for example. So Greece is the same, but how I see it in my mind, through my emotions, through my senses, that's very different. So I feel that this is very auspicious, is if with some of us it begins to happen within this lifetime, that we are less and less sure of our thoughts, opinions, judgments, and ideas after a particular growth in our consciousness. He looks out on the magic waves of time. So the soul consciousness is looking out. Imagine that you are in a cruise ship and you're looking out at the vast sea, the ocean of the time, where mind like a moon illumines the world's dark. So the only light I have in my ignorance is the light of thought. No matter how distorted it is, yet it is still a light before the greater light dawns in. Where mind is like a moon. Now moon has a reflected light. Moon, no matter how beautiful the light is seen, if you look at moon, one can just not want to take eyes away from moon. So beautiful it looks. And yet it is a reflected light. It's not a direct light. Where mind like a moon illumines the world's dark. There is a limned ever retreating from the eyes. So it's like limned means if you check the meaning, it's like describing, you're describing an image, and you connect it with the third line. There is limned ever retreating from the eyes, the outline of a dim mysterious shore. So it's like a dim outline of a mysterious shore far away is described through an imagery, and the lines are broken like a artist does its sketches. So when he starts with the sketches, the lines are, he leaves a line here and then there is a gap and then another line starts. So very delicate and fragile. Tenuous is delicate. Very delicate, fragile lines, not complete, half broken, half there. And that is how we look at the shores beyond, through our dim light of the mind. There is limned ever retreating. The closer we get to that shore, the farther it is. And that's the beauty of the divinity. So when we use the words for the divine, it is one of the words is anant, that which is unending. Now, one can also get frustrated that, oh my God, it's unending, so I'm not never ever going to reach there. And one can also very jump up in joy that, wow, it is unending. It means I can forever progress and progress and progress. There is no end to perfection. We can always have joy in the progress. So the more closer we go to these unknown shores, which are now visible from far away like a dim outline, the more we realize that we are further away from it. And that can also be referred to our own divine presence. That the deeper we go in ourselves, the deeper we connect with ourselves, we realize that, oh my God, there are still more further depths that we want to explore. And that's the beauty, that it's a journey. Although there is nowhere to reach, and yet we have to embark upon the journey. We cannot use it as an argument that since there is nowhere to reach, what is the use of starting? Because that will just stagnate us and we won't be really joyous creatures. So there is limned ever retreating from the eyes, as if in a tenuous misty dream light drawn, the outline, what is drawn? The outline of a dim mysterious shore. And that is why we call this mysticism. Many mystics, as we call them, because it's a mystery. You can never say that I have solved it. Finally, I have solved it, and here it is. Look, I can give it to you. The deeper we go, the when we meet truer mystics, people who have really realized, they are very grounded in nature. They would say, no, 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 no. This is not enough. There is further more to realize. There's further more to realize. There's not any end to this realization. That's the mystery. Yeah. So anything and anyone wants to share here?
Just a small comment,
Yeah.
when you were sharing that how when we go to one place, two people go to the same place, they have different opinions. And I don't know, something that even strikes me further is like siblings have very different opinions about how their childhood was, or if you parents. I mean, I find that mind-boggling that how is that possible? But, again, it shows that how it's not about the situation, the circumstances, the people. It's about what I see, what I'm capable of seeing, and what again, whatever is being like the mind, the moon example, okay, whatever is being shown, or
Mm,
I don't know, just whatever is shining at that moment, I see that. I
mm,
don't see the full thing.
yeah.
So it hits me again and again.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. And this also connects with, for example, scientists. So as a scientist, you look objectively at something which is there outside. For example, maybe I'm looking at a bacteria or a petri dish on which maybe many cultures of bacteria or fungus are there. So now, with quantum physics, they are realizing the importance of this subjectivity, what you were sharing, that it's my subjective attitude which I'm looking at the objective thing outside of me. So they now know, in science now it's more and more considered very important that if I'm looking at an experiment, it matters who is looking, because the one who is looking is able to influence the result. So so that changes the whole game, that wow, it means that I am able to influence the result outside of me. So it means that if I shift my consciousness within, then the reality outside of me also shifts, and it gives us very great power. This realization uh, gives us a very great power, also for science and also for day to day living. So we'll take up the last. Yes, Taru, want to share something?
No, no, I wanted to see if I should read.
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead then.
But why don't you complete what you were
No, no,
saying?
I was just sharing that this would be the last paragraph that we'll take. So please go ahead.
Okay. A sailor on the inconscient's fathomless sea, he voyages through a starry world of thought on matter's deck to a spiritual sun, across the noise and multitudinous cry, across the rapt, unknowable silences, through a strange mid-world under supernal skies, beyond Earth's longitudes and latitudes. His goal is fixed outside all present maps, but none learns withers through the unknown he sails, or what secret mission the great mother gave.
Yeah, okay, Pradeep ji. So again, beautiful lines, and then he also later on, which we'll read next time, he shares further about it. So this soul consciousness, the divine Godhead within us, a sailor on the inconscious fathomless sea. The more we get to know ourselves, we realize that we don't know ourselves. So that's the fathomless sea, the fathomless sea of, first of all, the matter outside, the material, the inconscience, and also the depths of our consciousness, which are fathomless also. A sailor on the inconscience, fathomless sea, he voyages through a starry world of thought. Now, when we look at stars, they give us a very faint light, and yet that light, for seamen, for example, who are sailing in the sea, it's important. They can make the sense of direction. Okay, this star is there, pole star is there, this constellation is there, so it means I'm traveling is in this direction. So no matter how faint is that light, the light of thought, half lit mind, it still helps us to voyage across these vast depths and heights and breadths. Soul consciousness voyages through a starry world of thought on matter's deck to a spiritual sun. So, this is our destiny and this is our birthright, and no one can take us away from this birthright to voyage towards the spiritual sun. Where is this creation coming from? Where is this light of mind coming from? What is the purpose of my existence? So we are all propelled either in this lifetime, or if not in this one, maybe another, it doesn't matter when. But as we grow as human beings, we will be compelled towards this spiritual sun, which is our destiny. And what is the deck right now where I am standing? It's the deck of the matter. Right now, I am embedded in my material consciousness, full of lethargy, full of inertia, the limitations of the material senses. They are all there. And yet, this is the boat which will carry me towards the spiritual sun. At the moment, on matter's deck to a spiritual sun, across the noise and multitudinous cry, across the rapt, unknowable silences. So, from time to time, we have these impulses, the vital rushes, the passions, the the movements of our vital being, emotions. As we in Hindi, we also call the world as Bhav Sagar. That please save me from this Bhav Sagar, Bhavnao ka Sagar. It's too overwhelming when we are identified with that. But across all that, we are even across the rapt unknowable silences, because even this immutable silence that many of us are able to reach to, that's not the end of the journey. So nirvana, or achieving silence in the being, a rest in the being, that's not the end of the journey, as Mother and Sri Aurobindo say in integral yoga. It's, they say that nirvana is the beginning of integral yoga, because when you have rest in the being, silence in the being, then we can work on transforming the nature, which is very hard to change, and even transforming the physical consciousness. So, across the noise and the multitudinous cry, across the rapt, unknowable silences, through a strange mid world under supernal skies. And earth is also referred to as mid world, that it above there is heaven, below there is patal lok or earth, the hell, and in the middle there is this progressive zone where even gods have to take birth if they want to progress, because in the godly realms there is no progress. You can spend your good karma there, you can enjoy being in luxury, but there is no progress in the godly realm. If we want to progress, we'll have to take a human birth. So it's like considered as a mid world. So above, in between heaven and so called hell. So through a strange mid world under supernal skies, beyond Earth's longitudes and latitudes. And if we look at longitudes and latitudes, that's how far we can stretch the measurement. But we don't end at the measurement. Earth may be ending at latitude and longitudes, but we are we have to carry even beyond the earthly matter. Beyond Earth's longitudes and latitudes, his goal, the goal of our spiritual consciousness, the soul consciousness, is fixed outside all present maps. So that's our highest possibility. That My senses may be limited, my mind may be limited, the thought is limited, yes, all that is there. But I am not limited. I know that there is further more for me to go and travel beyond. His goal is fixed. The destiny, it's like in mother's prayers and meditations, mother shares that divine victory is certain. For each one of us, each human being, the divine victory is certain. No matter at the moment I may be a criminal, or or a person who is full of evil deeds, doesn't matter. My goal or destiny is fixed, if not in this lifetime, in another. But none learns whither through the unknown he sails, or what secret mission the great mother gave. Now, the secret purpose of each life, each individual life, is kept safe. Just like, there is a story which was shared also earlier, that there was a sadhu who gave a disciple who wanted to take the initiation from the sadhu a task, that you take this box and carry it to another sadhu villages across. But that guy was very restless, the mind was very restless, so he opened up the box in between, and there was a mouse in the box, and he tottered aloud. He was lost in the forest. So there are times in our evolution as human beings when we are not ready to open that secret treasure, so it is kept safe. And that's how Prakriti, or the nature, or the movements of our thought patterns, ego patterns, all our impulses, passions, they take a front seat. So we were reading earlier in Savitri that Purusha knowingly took a backward seat, that you lead, you be the dominant one, saying to the Prakriti or the nature that you be the dominant one. I'll uh, be the extra numerary, I would not show myself up. And why is that so? Because that makes the game very interesting. It kind of makes it as an adventure. And then there are chance happenings. You meet a person by chance, because if I already know that I'm going to meet this person, then there is no adventure there. There is no fun. But if there are chance happenings, then there is more fun, more adventure. So that's why Prakriti, which seems very ignorant in impulsions and passions and like chance happenings, that takes the front seat, because I'm not ready yet. But as the man grows in his consciousness, he has the capacity to open up the secret present, or the secret hidden mission, which is a hidden mission for each one of us. And Mother also says that each one of us has a secret purpose to fulfill in this life. But before we come to that purpose, before we are able to clearly know that purpose, whatever work that we are doing, we must be doing it in an act of a servitude, like doing it with utmost surrender, doing it as an offering to the divine, okay, as best as I can do it, to benefit all others and myself around. So in that attitude, if I can do the temporary works in between, then slowly the life unfolds and I am led to the secret mission that is kept safe for each one of us. So this will further be revealed in the lines that are coming forward. But none learns whither through the unknown he sails, or what secret mission the great mother gave. So as I become capable, the secret mission is revealed to me. It's kept safe. So anything here, anyone? Any last comments? All right, so I'm assuming there is nothing at the moment. And with that, maybe we can end it here today. Thank you so much for joining, for listening, reading, and reflecting together. We'll meet next Monday, same time.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank
so much.
you.